bad news surrounding Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. And the news coming out today has just solidified our decision to completely move away from using anything related to the OGL, the Open Game License, because of the new information that's coming out. Now, it's worth noting that this has not been literally confirmed by Wizards of the Coast yet, but apparently the other day the newest version of the OGL leaked and it is everywhere. It's on all these places, and we've got guys like um, the Mr. Lawyer friend or my lawyer friend Noah Downs talking about, which we're going to go through his article. He's a lawyer, a gaming attorney. He's got a lot of good information over the years, and we're going to be going through his article. But the basic gist of it is, if you read this kind of stuff on Twitter, Abyssal Bruce saying fifth edition rose to prominence on the backs of third-party content creators making bucket loads of diverse, engaging, and downright better content for the system. D&D is worst when it's closed. And then they also make another statement about how there's a weird feeling sitting here wondering if a billion-dollar corporation is going to destroy the small business you've been building for 2 years. So the crux of the outrage right now, if you remember a few weeks back, there was a lot of, you know, rumors going around, and then Wizards of the Coast came out on the D&D Beyond website and made a public statement and said, oh, not a lot's going to change. Here are the three things that are most important. One, you are going to have to report any product that you make using our OGL, and you'll have to brand it with a badge. Two, you're going to have to report any income above $50,000 to us on your product. And C, if you make more than $750,000 on said product, you're going to need to pay us a royalty. Now, I didn't really care about the royalty component of this too much because we use the Unreal Engine as an example with our point and click adventure game. And Unreal has a very fair, Epic has a very fair policy in place whereby you can earn up to $1 million with your game before they expect you to pay any royalties. And then only after that do you pay royalties. That's very fair. Making $1 million for a small company like ours allows us to make a healthy living for ourselves. More than happy to pay that because we're using their engine, the Unreal Engine, to make our video game. So, in that same vein, I would have no problem reporting earnings beyond a certain threshold to Wizards of the Coast and paying a royalty if I was using their rule set. That part of it I don't have an issue with, because we do that with other companies, and it would seem fair to me that we would do that. However, it's the new stuff that has come out, the new language that apparently leaked the other day that has everybody in an uproar, and it solidified our decision to move away. Um, so basically, I gotta change that to dark mode. Jesus. The reason I didn't have it on dark mode is like if you go back, like when you go to dark mode and you already have Twitter in dark mode, it does that and it looks horrific. Anyway, so the crux of this is that they claimed previously that the original OGL, which has been in works, it's been in use for like 20 years, that has language in it which says that it is in perpetuity. It's a forever license. The new OGL that they are putting in place claims that they are making the old OGL part of the new OGL, and that if you want to continue moving forward, then you are automatically accepting the new OGL even with older products. That's one of the things that people are taking an issue with, but that's not the biggest issue. It says here the OGL 101 or 10A is a perpetual, but it says not irrevocable, and that's the very important thing. It was not an irrevocable license that allowed third-party creators like Alchemy RPG, Cobalt Press, Hitpoint Press, The Griffin Settle, like DM Dave, Loot Tavern. You've got Critical Role, and so on and so forth. OGL 1.1 is not an open license. It is a severely restricted set of licenses for commercial and non-commercial that grants Wizards of the Coast broad rights to the works of third-party creators and requires high royalty percentage in exchange for continuing to create. There's a whole section of things in here that are most important to us, and it's this section right here. Under the new OGL, you will own your own content and works and can distribute them to certain places. not all places, certain places. However, Wizards of the Coast will receive a perpetual, irrevocable right to use your works and to allow others to use your works without additional payment to you. This would allow Wizards of the Coast to publish these works in places you would not be allowed to and to allow others to do the same. That's the crux of the argument here. One is the fact that they're trying to say that the old OGL is no longer valid and that it's everything has to fall under the new OGL, which that's I would think that they would have a hard time holding that up in court considering everyone who agreed to the original OGL agreed to a perpetual license and them trying to revoke that perpetual license, that's the one that would, you would have to go to court to fight that. But this is the one. This is the one that has pretty much everyone. DM Dave already rebranded to GM Dave. He's in the middle of rebranding on her stuff. We are in the middle of stripping all 5th edition mention out of all of our product related to the Weave of the Void. We are going to be making it an agnostic system, meaning that you can play our tabletop setting with any rule set that you want, because I'm not going to be bound by this part of it right here, which is the part that says that Wizards of the Coast, if you choose to publish something using their OGL, they gain a perpetual, irrevocable right to use your works and to allow others to use your works without additional payment to you. They're basically saying that if you choose to publish something with our rule set that we're letting you use, then you give us the right to then use your stuff if we want to in other places. And what really notable here is in the places you would not be allowed to because they're also restricting where you can distribute your work. They're trying to tell you how and where you can publish your third-party material if you're using the new OGL. Also very important, and it's mentioned in a couple of other places, is that if you remember recently the whole, you know, uh, controversy surrounding Wizards of the Coast removing mention of race from Dungeons and Dragons. It now says peoples, dwarves, elves. They can't be referred to as races anymore. They have to be known as peoples because it's discriminatory to call them races. It's also worth noting that the new OGL also has wording in there that says because they're requiring everyone who uses the new OGL to send their material to Wizards of the Coast for viewing, they reserve the right to go through your material and dictate what you can or can't publish if it violates their specific set of criteria for what they deem to be publishable material. So, as an example, you're not going to be allowed to refer to elves and dwarves and dragons and goblins and so on and so forth as races. You'll have to refer to them as peoples because if you don't, they won't allow you to publish your third party material through the new OGL because it doesn't fall under what they consider to be acceptable language and acceptable practices. So they're attempting to not only dictate how much money you're allowed to make and the fact that they want to be able to leverage your um, intellectual property, your product identity, anywhere they want without paying you a royalty. They also want to be able to dictate to you how you're allowed to write your fantasy world and how you're allowed to create your world and what themes are allowed or what themes shouldn't be allowed in your world. Because if you write something that might be offensive to someone, they're going to tell you that you can't publish that under their license because it's offensive and therefore, well, now we're getting into censorship issues. So again, none of this has been officially confirmed. Wizards of the Coast has not made any official statements, but Twitter is, if you just Google, not Google, just look up D&D and you're going to see a dumpster fire this morning. I mean, it was like the first thing I saw when I woke up. Um, my Twitter was just an unending feed of the proposed OGL 101, 1.1, sorry. People are freaking out about it. Now, everyone is saying if the proposed OGL 1.1, the leaked OGL 1.1, so on and so forth, um, everyone is talking about how the current leaked version is the current proposed language. And supposedly, I haven't seen the actual leaked document. I've only seen all this stuff on the internet. Um, the at the somewhere in that document it says that if there's enough pushback or if maybe they screwed up and this is going to be too restrictive that they reserve the right to adapt this moving forward. So this could be a case of if the internet is making a big enough stink about it, they might decide to change. Who knows? I'm only basically reporting the news at this point, and I'm telling you that at least for us, I, like DM Dave, who is now GM Dave, and many other content creators who are in that small content space, because our little company making that world behind you, the world of the Weave and the Void, we built that world. Originally, I was going to do my own homebrew rule set, and then I said, oh, it's much easier to use the fifth edition OGL, so that's what we went with. We released our source book last year, live streaming the campaigns for more than a year, um, and put out the first module. We have the second module already in the works. We have our point and click adventure game, and we have the book series and everything else. And the reality is that you know we've put a lot of time in 2 years of work into that so far. And granted, the tabletop component is only one third of what we do, and everything else is, we have a book series and then the point and click adventure game as well. But we've already, at Christmas time, I already went through the Patreon and removed all mention of fifth edition from the Patreon page, other than one image which I need to replace, because I was kind of waiting to see what exactly was going to be happening with the new OGL. But with the current language, I've just decided, like DM Dave, we're completely moving away from anything related to Wizards of the Coast, 100%. We are rebranding our entire tabletop source book to be an agnostic source book, meaning that it could be used with any rule set out there as opposed to being a 5th edition prime. Because it's just not worth it. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that a company should be able to censor the type of material that we write, nor do I believe that we should have to be um, allowing a company access to our intellectual property to use however they see fit in places, and also to dictate where we can't publish our work because they're wanting to control. I can't get behind any of that. So unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast, unless you change things, you're shooting yourself in the foot at this point. You are making it to where no one, look at Twitter. All you have to do is open up Twitter and look at the D&D hashtag, and you're going to find just it's full of people upset about the changes to it, to the new OGL. It's just not right. It doesn't sit well with anybody, and it's not a good look for Wizards of the Coast. It makes them look like a greedy billionaire corporation who just wants to make money off the backs of all these people who, you know, again, I have no problem, none whatsoever, with sharing revenue with Wizards of the Coast if we're using their rule set. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's the same thing as the Epic deal that we have using the Unreal Engine. That's fair. If we're using the rule set, we should pay a royalty above a certain percentage. That part I have no problem with, but I do have a problem being told that you have access to all of my intellectual property to do anything you want with without paying me any royalties. That part I can't get behind, nor can I get behind you trying to dictate to me what I can and can't write for our world of what you deem is offensive or not. Censorship does not have any place in my world. So that's where it stands. Love to hear your thoughts. If anybody has any more information on this, please drop it in the comments below. And if you like this and you want more, check out all the playlists here on my YouTube channel. You can support with a super thanks. You can join as a member. There is a Patreon page for the stuff that we've been working on for the past couple of years. If you want to check that out with my wife or my brother, there's a Discord channel. All the links are below. See you in the next episode, whenever that might be, or whatever we're talking about. Until then, stay safe, everybody.